Man of Steel was something different. The character of Superman was not unknown, but Man of Steel introduced his character in a unique way. Clark's Kryptonian birth and the fall of Krypton in the movie's opening moments are just some of the best parts of the film, not just for the visual spectacle, but because it added so much to the film itself. It not only expanded upon the mythos of Krypton, but it also showed the birth of both Kal-El and showed Zod's fall from grace. Kal-El was going to be a beacon of hope, and Zod was just a guy trying to save his home and his fellow Kryptonians. It truly helps that Russell Crowe and Michael Shannon are great as Jor-El and General Zod. Jor-El is not only seen as a guide to Clark and one of the better people from his planet, he is also chiefly the voice of reason, even with Zod himself. I especially love the scene when he tells Kal, "You can save her, Kal, you can save them all," because it is telling of what exactly Kal was sent to Earth for. Michael Shannon Zod is right in the league of villains like Ra's al Ghul, Eric Killmonger, and a few others, in that he feels like he's doing the right thing for his people. His menacing delivery of lines like "I will find him" and his final bout with Superman are some of the best parts of the film, and frankly, I don't feel anyone else could have played Zod better. Speaking of Jor-El, arguably his best line in the film, the "You will give the people of Earth an ideal to strive towards" line, was one of my favorite quotes from the film and one of my favorite lines in a movie. I'm glad Man of Steel took the time to show that Clark and Kal learned things from both Jonathan Kent and Jor-El. I never had a father figure growing up, so it was great to see how both Jonathan and Jor-El influenced Clark and how some of what Clark learned from both men could be applied to real life. Not just choice, but also doing what is right even when some of those around you aren't. Standing up for what is right even when there are so many seemingly on the wrong side. Even supporting characters like Perry White and General Swanwick add to the film, giving that much needed dose of humor that everyone claims the DCU doesn't have.
Crime wave in Gotham. Other breaking news. Water. Wet.
The women in Clark's life hold just as much impact. Diane Lane as Martha Kent is one of the best parts of the film, and all of her scenes with Clark are great. They truly come across as mother and son, and the beauty of certain scenes like the scene at Clark's school when he says the world is too big, and the thrill of Superman plummeting Zod for threatening Martha's safety is one of the many reasons I feel Man of Steel is great, and it continues in Batman v Superman. His relationship with Lois was also cool to see, though I admittedly think that it is significantly better in BVS. Lois was one of the people Kal-El needed to save the world for, and like he told her in BVS, she is his world. Clark found someone else to fight for and to save, and he did just that along with saving the world. I never took issue with the so-called quote-unquote Jesus imagery slash Christ parallels because, for one, Jesus and Superman aren't so different. Man of Steel told the story of Superman in a realistic way, and even if Jesus were to suddenly reveal himself today, can you imagine how people would respond? Look at that. I'm starting to sound like Perry White. Superman is an alien from another planet with seemingly godlike abilities, and Jesus is from the kingdom of heaven with the ability to heal the sick and raise the dead. The complaint of the film being too dark or too destructive really don't make much sense because, again, the film is about Superman trying to stop Zod. Zod's motives spell destruction and despair, ironically enough, and I still can't quite figure out why so many use this complaint against Man of Steel. Superman was saving the world by stopping Zod, but just like the battle on Krypton, the fight was do or die. Zod was beyond the point of being reasoned with and had no intent of stopping himself or giving up. The complaint of Henry not being like Reeve or not my Superman really doesn't make sense either, because even before he wore the actual suit, he was already saving countless lives. Clark was doing heroic deeds and doing the right thing before he took his first flight. Regardless of the charm that Reeve displayed when he was donning the suit, Henry's Superman is presented differently, in a more realistic manner. Even while Superman is doing the right thing, there are those around him who don't like it and want to keep him from doing good. If you put yourself in his position, can you honestly say that you would be any different? And shout out to Man of Steel Answers on YouTube for putting this into a much clearer perspective. I often wonder why the complaint of too much destruction isn't used in reference to other superhero films that have piles and piles of destruction, but I suppose it's because certain critics and viewers forget that If these things truly bothered them, they could simply close their eyes and not see all this so-called destruction. But I forgot, they claim that they don't like The Dark. Man of Steel, directed by Zack Snyder, is not only a worthy superhero film, it's one of the best comic book origin movies that I've seen, and one of the few superhero movies along with Batman v Superman that I've learned a lot from. I appreciate that Zack took the approach of bringing Superman and humanizing the character so much to the point that he's relatable for myself and easy to understand. He's not perfect, and he's still learning and finding himself in this imperfect world, and with that comes doubt. Like I've said many times before, he wasn't Superman right away, but he was Superman in the midst of it all. And even now, 5 years later, Man of Steel is a beautiful origin of Superman.